The complaint of the depressive individual, nothing is possible, can only occur in a society that thinks nothing is impossible. Welcome to the world of influencers creating your startup and motivational Instagram posts. The mantra here is always, you can do it. But what happens when we fail to meet those incredibly high standards? Contemporary philosopher Byung-Chul Han thinks this mentality is a one-way ticket to misery. He writes that achievement society creates depressives and losers. Han wrote the Burnout Society in 2010, and since then, depression rates have skyrocketed, especially for younger generations. Han predicted that a certain narcissism was on the rise, as evidenced by TikTokers and hustle culture. But how is this making us sick? In reality, it is not the excess of responsibility and initiative that makes one sick, but the imperative to achieve, the new commandment of late modern labor society. Han sees this obsession with achievement as a societal sickness. He likens it to cancer, where your own cells or ambitions start replicating uncontrollably. In our endless quest for self-improvement, we've forgotten how to hit the brakes, and when we crash, it's not some evil dictator pushing us to the edge, but rather we're doing it to ourselves. Today, everyone is an auto-exploiting laborer in his or her own enterprise. People are now master and slave in one. Even class struggle has transformed into an inner struggle against oneself. For the most part, we're our own worst enemy. We've ditched external oppression for a more efficient, relentless model, self-exploitation. Han calls this the violence of positivity, and it's what hides behind every try-hard LinkedIn profile, each flex on Instagram, every carefully curated diet and gym routine, and especially the creepy Duolingo owl reminding you it's time to practice. It's that constant feeling of I'm not enough, and people will do all these goofy things that won't get rid of the feeling, and somehow we convince ourselves that it's all normal. So how on earth did we get here? This modern condition is distinct from the world of even just 60 years ago. Han writes, today's society is no longer Foucault's disciplinary world of hospitals, madhouses, prisons, barracks, and factories. It has long been replaced by another regime, namely a society of fitness studios, office towers, banks, airports, shopping malls, and genetic laboratories. Back in the day, discipline was all about obeying rules to avoid nasty consequences, like ending up on a guillotine, or maybe worse, being drawn and quartered, where they tie each limb to a horse and yell, "Giddy up," or get stuffed into an Iron Maiden. If you've seen Braveheart, you know what happens when you get on the wrong side of a medieval king. This guy was hanged, drawn, beheaded, and quartered, and then pieces of his body were paraded around different cities to deter rebellion. But at least he went out like a champ. We can also look at poor Titus Oates. This man committed perjury, which led to the wrongful executions of at least 22 innocent people during the popish plot hysteria, and was sentenced to life in prison and to be placed in the pillory 5 times a year. Nobody wants to end up there. People were obedient subjects, controlled by fear of punishment. But to Han, that's old news. Today, it's not about obedience, it's about achievement. And the result? A rat race. The achievement subject competes with itself. It succumbs to the destructive compulsion to outdo itself over and over, to jump over its own shadow. Imagine a rat on a wheel, running faster and faster until it keels over. That's us. Except the human rat wheel is tweaking your resume, taking the perfect picture for social media, binging self-help content, and looks maxing. But at one moment, the rat stops, looks around, and says, "Why the hell do I have 12 rat wheels? And who said I needed to be on all of them at once?" Han continues, the society of laboring and achievement is not a free society. It generates new constraints. Everyone carries a work camp inside. This labor camp is defined by the fact that one is simultaneously prisoner and guard, victim and perpetrator. Not exactly the freedom we signed up for. The sneaky thing about Achievement Society is that it doesn't dominate us externally. It works from within, whispering to us to keep trucking along. The greater power is, the more quietly it works. It just happens. It has no need to draw attention to itself. It's genius, really. This isn't the kind of oppressive regime you read about in history books or watch in black and white documentaries. It's quieter and much harder to pin down. It's subtle and relentless. It's hard to fight because there's no villain, no tyrant to overthrow. The enemy is inside us. The violence of positivity does not deprive, it saturates. Does not exclude, it exhausts. Positivity is everywhere and it's suffocating. There's no escape. The achievement subject isn't a person, it's a project, and projects don't rest.
Get back on Duolingo.
Oh crap, how did that owl get back here? Nowadays, there's endless ways to one-up yourself, and the result, a society drowning in burnout. From a pathological standpoint, the incipient 21st century is determined neither by bacteria nor by viruses, but by neurons. Depression, ADHD, BPD, and burnout syndrome mark the landscape of pathology. Here's the twist. Negativity was easier to fight. It came from outside. Bacteria, viruses, tyrannical kings. You could identify it and throw hands. But positivity, that's trickier. It's self-imposed. You can't rebel against the dictator in the mirror. Or can you? Han's solution? Slow down. Stop optimizing. Build relationships. Resist the hyperactivity. Let yourself be bored. A purely hectic rush produces nothing new. It reproduces and accelerates what is already available. Quit doom scrolling motivational podcasts, delete that calorie tracking app for a week, and just let your mind wander. Han's point isn't to reject ambition, it's to make space for being human again. If we resist hyperactivity, we may rediscover the things that make life worth living, like human connection, creativity, and moments of genuine rest. This way, you may feel like the captain of your own ship, rather than being viciously pulled along by a monkey with ADHD. Instead of seeing yourself as a project that always needs optimizing, Han calls us to embrace imperfection. Forget the rat wheels. Block some time to do things with no measurable return on investment. Play with your dog, go for a walk, or spend time with people you care about with no agenda. These small acts of rebellion might be the most radical thing you can do in a society obsessed with productivity. Han offers us a way out, not by adding another thing to the to-do list, but by daring to stop, step off the wheel, and just be.
Let's go.